Alright, hey guys, OFD checking in here, and today we're going to be taking a look at a Seiko SKX. So, I know there's a million reviews out there on the YouTube and everywhere else on the SKX, so nothing really big and new and exciting here. For me, this one's a cool one because this is the SKX013K2, which if you guys are familiar with the SKX lineup, this is kind of a smaller, shrunk down version of the standard SKX007. So I don't know if they actually made this watch in any other color configurations as far as a Pepsi or an orange dial or anything like that. As far as I know, they just make the standard black one. Now, if I'm wrong about that and you guys know something different than that, go ahead and put it down below at the bottom. So very cool. Now, I no longer have a standard SKX in the collection. I will put a link down below to the most recent Marshall Time video. I actually sold my SKX011J to Chris Marshall over there at Marshall Time, and he just did a review this morning, so I'll leave a link down below so you can watch that one. But I've always wanted to try this watch. Now, guys, generally, if you watch my channel, you know I advertise that I have a 7¼ inch wrist, excuse me. Just recently been doing some working out and different stuff like that, and my wrist size is actually down to right about 7 inch, just slightly under, and actually thought it was a great time for me to kind of try out this watch here, just because of the size difference. Now, your standard SKX, the closest thing I have to it here is this old 7548 I have from when I was a kid back in the 80s, is a 42mm watch, and you can see it here next to the SKX013, which is a 38mm watch. So that's 38mm from side to side on the case on this watch, not including the crown, of course. And you're looking from lug tip to lug tip and north to south, a 44, I think it was 44.3 when I measured it. And then standard SKX thickness on this watch of 13.2. Everything done very similar to your standard SKX as far as the case polishing, just really nice like they always do on the SKX. The knurling on the bezel is the same, is a 120 click bezel on this. I do feel like it's a little bit smoother as far as the feel of grabbing the bezel, but it might also just be you know, because of the size, the diameter of the actual bezel itself is a little bit smaller. Go ahead and get that to line up there. No back play as usual in the SKX bezel. I will say this is a K model, and everything on this watch lines up perfect. I don't really have a problem with anything with the way the indices are lining up on this watch at all. So as all SKX are, this is around the 7S26 movement, so it's a non-hacking, non-hand winding movements from Seiko. 20mm lug openings on this watch. Screw down crown as usual. Slightly different crown guards on this. They're not as soft as the crown guards on the standard SKX. I'll bring it up here. They're just a little bit sharper the way they come down. You guys can see compared to my old 7548, they're a little bit more, I don't know, there's a little more sweep up to the crown guards, whereas these just are a lot sharper the way it comes up here. A little bit tougher to get a hold of the crown because of the smaller size there, but works pretty good. So on my 7-inch wrist, guys, I'm able to pull this off. And I think if you're 7-inch and under, this is probably the best wearing SKX out there. Usually with my standard size 42mm and above, I don't wear those watches to bed or anything like that just because they tend to be a lot of weight on my wrist as I sleep like that. But with this one, I've actually been able to wear this watch to bed pretty much every night since I got it. I did size the standard factory Jubilee to fit me. I'll tell you guys, as long as I've been a Seiko collector, and as you guys can see there in the background, I have a lot of Seikos from the, all the way back to the 1960s and the 70s and the 80s, all the way up to the modern stuff here. But I've never owned a Jubilee bracelet, which is just nuts. And so I sized this thing to fit me. I'm going to leave this watch on the Jubilee bracelet. I think at a 7-inch wrist, if I take this off the Jubilee and I take it off of these nice in-links here, it's going to, the size of the watch is actually going to shrink down a little bit if you put it on a NATO, to me anyways. I don't know if you guys think that too, but let me go ahead and put this watch on so you guys can get a look at it on my 7¼ inch wrist. You know, I was at a function on Friday, unfortunately, a funeral, and I had to wear a suit and tie and stuff like that. And it was amazing how easily this watch fit right underneath the cuff of my jacket and my shirt. Whereas your standard SKX isn't going to do that just because the diameter of the watch is quite a bit bigger. But the watch wears amazingly well. I'm going to take it off again so I can show you guys just a few slight differences on this model from the standard SKX, besides the size. Let me get it up here close enough to show you guys. Get Get my camera to focus nicely. Okay, so one of the first things you'll notice right off is that second hand. Now, on your standard SKX, you have the flying meatball there at the back end of the second hand, which is the loomed part, whereas on the 013, you actually have the loom tip out there on the arrow end of the second hand, which I like. I mean, I know that really the second hand is only there, the loomed pip is just to let you know the watch is still running for diving purposes, but I do like having it on what you'd call, I guess, the right side of the second hand. And just another slight difference is the minute hand. If you guys would look up there at the minute hand, instead of having that sharp arrow edge across the bottom of that tip there, it kind of is indented a little bit. I'll show you here compared to like a standard SKX hand there on the minute hand there. And then also a slight difference that I noticed is over here at the 3 o'clock date window, there is actually a slight cutout in the index ring in there to accommodate that date window, maybe because of the smaller size overall of the watch. But very cool watch. You got your standard Seiko case back for your divers with your Kanagawa wave, your air divers identified there. Your Seiko, the 7S26 movement, and down here you do have a serial number for the watch. Found it quite interesting because by looking at the serial number, it looks like this watch was made in August of 2017. So the rumors of the SKX being discontinued, I think, are just that. They're just rumors. They're still obviously producing these things within just the last few months. So there it is, guys, the SKX013K2 from Seiko. I think a great alternative for those with 7-inch and under wrists, maybe even a 7¼ wrist. You can pull this thing off, no problem. Great feeling watch. I don't think anyone should worry about the size being a little bit smaller. I think once you get past it, it's one of the best wearing Seiko SKX out there. Like I said, if you can pull it off with a smaller, maybe 7-inch or under wrist size. I think for anyone with a 6 on up, to 7¼ this is going to be a real nice sweet spot watch and something you're really going to enjoy wearing. And to be honest with you, I know these Jubilee bracelets and these folded in links are nothing too spectacular, but really it's a classic look on a Seiko SKX, and it's something for a while at least I'll be leaving on here and I will be enjoying on this watch. Loom is typical of all of your Seikos, and your SKX obviously super, super bright with their proprietary loom mix that they make, and this one is no exception. So if you guys like this video, go ahead and give me a thumbs up down there at the bottom, and if you have not subscribed to the OFD channel yet, please do. Please do. Thanks, guys.